Thank you very much. Please be seated. You have no light at the airport, and I have to fly back within the next 10 minutes. To you leaders, I've had this. To the victim, there is nothing I can give you, whether money in billions, but console you and promise you that this experience will not repeat itself. I take, for example, Favor Rodan. I know the pain. I see how on the video you head on to Ayuba, and the pain and agony in your heart. But it's only God. It's only God who can give you joy and comfort. No amount of money can pay all of you back. Yes.
Hello, everyone. I would say that Mr. Tinubu literally went to Plateau State just to just insult the sensibilities of those who are in mourning, who have lost their loved ones and are thrown into agony. Because what was that all about? You just watched that video, right? The lack of empathy, the lack of emotional intelligence, the lack of, leadership, the lack of sympathy, even. People have lost their people. I mean, these are people who are supposed to have children. If Tinubu was to lose his child today, will he be talking about NEPA? Will he be talking that there's no light, if people don't have light, and I just have 10 minutes to breeze out of here? If he loses any of his child, brutally murdered, will he be talking like this? When we talk about empathy, is the number one thing in any leadership. Empathy. You can't even equate it with anything. If you have a leader or so-called leader who has no empathy, forget about it. I used to talk about competence, character, capacity as my, when you're talking about the top things to get. I got to a place where I realized that no. It is actually empathy. If you have a leader who has empathy, they will do everything to ensure that things work for the people. But the ones that don't have empathy will come and sit down on you, talk to me anyhow, denigrate you, talk to you as if you are just like slaves or animals or whatever that they have out there. Because I really don't see the way and manner in which Tinubu spoke to those people who were grieving. You remember the viral video that went of a woman who held her dead child on her chest, promised mom, who kept saying, I know you're not dead. Wake up, wake up. And then you see the pain that this woman have had to carry. I've watched a few of her interviews. You see the pain that she has had to carry. And she was at that particular event. Tinubu could not come down and just sit with them and just say, sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry we couldn't protect you. He's there as far as he's concerned. They are an inconvenience that did not allow him to go and be flexing where he wanted to flex. He had to cancel something for him to be there. To come to the airport, by the way, it was the airport. He came, he could not drive into the city to go and visit them there. He sat down, he did not go to they had to bring them to him. Kai. The kind of insult that we take in this Nigeria, the kind of insult that we get here is just out of this world. Honestly, it's just so unbelievable. Nigerians must get to a place where they value their lives, where they see themselves as important and they should not be treated anyhow. If we don't get to that stage, we'll constantly be treated in whatever manner that these people choose to treat us. Say the manner, say the way he spoke to those people. What stops you from sitting down and having a conversation with them? I just watched that particular video, and it took me back to January 14, 2016. Yes, that's the day. I will never forget that day. Most times when people ask me, like, you have interviewers or something, and they're asking what is your most painful, I mean, maybe period in the advocacy for the Chibok girls, which is the Bring Back Our Girls movement. I always refer to that January 14, 2016, because on that day, Lord have mercy, I was so devastated. I couldn't even meet the eyes of the parents that have come. And I'll give you a very bit on that whole thing. In December 30, either December 31st, and I think that was whether that was the first and last media chat that Buhari did, but I know it was the last. I don't know whether he had done anyone before that. So Buhari was asked about Chibok girls. It was Kayode Akintemi that was asking those questions. So he asked him about Chibok girls. What do they know about them? Buhari dismissed it. Former President Buhari dismissed it. He did as if he didn't hear. But Mr. K, like he's fondly called, kept repeating the question. And at the end, Buhari had to respond to that question. And he responded in a very dismissive manner, which was like, oh, you are disturbing. And they're like, oh, I don't have intelligence on those girls. When we heard that the Bring Back Our Girls movement, we're like, no, 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 no. We then did a letter that we needed to see the president. And that they said the protocol was around, is it 2 weeks or something? That's how they gave us that January 14, 2016. And we then went for this meeting. First of all, a lot of things happened in this meeting. That whole thing, I was in communication. I was the person who was coordinating for the Bring Back Our Girls movement. At that time, I think I was either still the sitter coordinator, or I had become the chairperson of the strategic team. I can't remember now, within that period. And so what then happened, I was the one coordinating, and I was Garba Shehu who was coordinating on behalf of the government. So myself and him were in touch. Only for us to get there, Garba Shehu was like, oh no, we didn't tell that. We didn't tell them. We're like, we told you this. Of course, I had to now start sugar. Come and see the chat we had. We were chatting. I was sending you messages. Because for me, I love to document things. I will send them down to you. But that's not even, by the way. So when we got there, First of all, Chibok parents were going to come, and most of them had to even sell their produce, farm produce, and all of that for them to be able to come in. When they started the journey, they were stopped. Military stopped them and refused them from coming down to Abuja. It took a whole lot. We were doing back and forth before they finally agreed, and then they escorted them. Because I think they were in two vehicles, something like that. One of the vehicle was taken to Kaduna. They now said that they made a mistake. And how are you coming from Borno to Abuja and you made a mistake and you are in Kaduna, not Abuja? Not that you were in Kubwa. You made a mistake coming inside, or you were, Buhari, or you were in Gwarimpa, or you were in Asoko. No, no, no. You left the whole town and you were there, but you know what it is. Then the next morning they brought them in. We waited. It was getting a bit. So we even started the march, though they still met us. When we got in there, former President Buhari, now decided that he was not going to see us, that he was going to send some official. Then the late Mama Taraba was also part of those. Can't remember, the chief of army staff, chief of air staff, and then anyway, and she was the one that was leading it. When she came, she showed total empathy. And I remember when she came, she was, she had come to my side, and then there was this thing. So there's this thing with me, right? Me, even if I know you as my friend, the moment you enter government or whatever, I stay away from you. I know I don't go to them. I don't talk to them. Some of them, I have their numbers. When they see me, they want to collect my number. They'll give me their number, whatever. I don't have anything. So myself and her, we were also in communication, because she was then the Minister of Women Affairs. Myself, and she's late now. Aisha Hassan, that was, she was called Mama Taraba. And so myself and her were also in communication on this thing. She had given me her number. And then she was like, oh, why didn't I call her? I'm like, madam, I have no business calling you. There's nothing connecting me and you. You are not the one, coordinating on behalf of the government. It was Derbyshire and I was talking with him. I didn't have anything, to talk. And then there was something she said, something like, whether the children are lost, can't the parents see her, we let them be patient over it, or let them just let it be, something of that nature. Then and I looked at her, I said, madam, you lost an election, you didn't let it be. Why are you in national, why are you in court? Why did you go to court? Why didn't you just sit down and let it be? It's election you lost, so you went to court. Then some people have lost their children, you are telling them to let it be. That one kukuma carry herself, and so when they finish now, so we refused to engage with them and we said we needed to see the president because parents had come all the way from Borno to come and meet with the president, and they just you can't just tell them to go. It took a lot. We sat down there, we said we are not going. The president said they are not going. After a very, very long while, the then President Buhari came in. You could see he was visibly angry. He was angry at the fact that they insisted he had to come and blah blah blah. So he came in there. He was so angry. He talked down on the parents. He was telling them how he was working hard, how there was oil theft in Delta, and how he had reached the peak of his career as a military man and as a civilian, because he was a military head of state and now he's a civilian head of state. If you see, I say my body cold. That day, I couldn't even use eye to look at the Chibok parents. You could see for them, and just seeing this thing that Tinubu is doing, just my flashback reminding me of that. You see parents that were, there was one of the Chibok mothers that spoke. The way she spoke was like, the way they had been treated earlier, whatever, expecting that she was going to get good words from President Buhari. From here, worst case scenario. It was such a painful moment. We couldn't even look them in the eyes. Couldn't even look at the parents in the eye. You could see the shock. These are people who are traveled all the way to come to Abuja to see this man, the president, and be able to get reassurance that their children were coming back. And there was nothing, there was nothing like that. And then President Buhari was not talking about this, that. When he finished, he just dropped the mic, and the next thing he stood up and stormed away. For me, honestly, if I was amongst the parents, they probably, I was sitting well, almost sitting directly each other. If you see the eye and they give me, I would have jacked him. Maybe the Kukuma shoot me there. For me, how annoyed I was that day. And then when he finished, he dropped the mic and he went away. Usually in the places, of course, every people stood up and refused to stand up. From that day, for me, that was the day that, as far as I'm concerned, Buhari was not the president that I said I was going to give this. And they're saying this. So anyway, this one, Nigeria does not have a president. The one you have is someone who rigged himself into office and masquerade. Let me not bore you with too much video, but I literally, Tinubu went to just to go and insult grieving families.